Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Global Games. It's week number 3, as we just saw South Korea get a pretty emphatic victory. It was a quick one. I was expecting maybe a little bit more of a fight from Finland.
Yeah, unusual to see Yanetsky and Winland going down so early, but nice to get a quick one under the belt. They can be long days, so...
It can be long days, but we're rattling right through it. My name is Dan Gaskin, and this unfortunate fellow next to me is Lorinda. It is a pleasure to be alongside you once again, Neil. I'm sorry I had to take you away from Falcone, but I guess there are positives there as well.
Yeah, we got taken away from Falcone, so...
That is the positive.
That's the positive and the negative all at once.
But our next matchup today is going to be the United Kingdom versus Sweden, which is going to be one heck of a matchup. There are the players on either side. Some very large names in the Hearthstone scene, Neil. Most notably on the United Kingdom side, Ball Control, who of course just had a fantastic victory at the Seat Story Cup, and then some amazing names alongside him. But Sweden, I mean, Orange is there. That's a massive name to me as well.
Yeah, and Ball beat him in the semi-finals there. What's interesting to me is there's two players on either side, Boston Orange, Jackie Chan, Ball, who have been at Seat Story Cup. A lot of the players there were laddering to get their finishes, so I think this week might be about what preparation did the slightly lesser-known names do. I mean, Green Sheep's not a lesser-known name, but it's almost like a 2v2 this week of the other players doing the prep, because these guys were involved with another event. And there's so much Hearthstone now for these guys, they can't do all the prep for everything all of the time. So it's going to be interesting to see if actually they bring up... You've got to keep it fresh, otherwise you get countered. See what they brought along.
Yeah, certainly when I was speaking to Toast Monster, a good friend of Toast Monster, and I was asking him what's the kind of preparation like with the team, who is leading the charge, and he said actually we all kind of put in the same amount of work. So now that maybe one player is at a tournament a little bit more often, you're just going to need to see those players kind of trying to do a little bit more, which could lead into some interesting matchups, because if Green Sheep, for example, is having to pick more, maybe we get more aggro. We'll take a look at the picks and the bans then and see what people are going to be playing today. It's always a very interesting scenario with Druid and Shaman taken away first.
Not at all surprised to see Sweden getting their Druid taken away. Orange is one of the best Malygos Druid players in the world, if not the best. Well, Hunter Ace exists, but in a world where you don't count Hunter Ace for anything anymore because he's just too good, I feel that taking that away. Interestingly, the Shaman ban, it's been banned a lot, but I feel that people mess up with Shaman, especially with 4 people all saying different things, enough that it's not as good as it should be in this meta, just because it's so hard to coordinate, make the right plays. And so I'd rather see the Druid banned, but all makes sense to me. And but at the bottom there, the Mage just keeps getting left up, and it keeps doing all right.
Yeah, it's whether maybe they got rid of the Shaman because I know the United Kingdom Shaman had Hemet in, for example. So perhaps Sweden were just hoping that if they ban it, they're not going to go into a mirror, and they won't see what we just happened in the last game, where Hemet basically was able to put them in such a fantastic position to start with. So some of those are going to be some of the considerations that you have when going into the banning phase. But it will be the next phase, the pick phase, which is, of course, what makes the real impact in this series. As we can see, first up is going to be Orange versus Jackie Chan. It's going to be Priest versus Mage.
And it is the... Which mage is it? This is a control mage. This is going to be a longish one. Oh no, it's a face mage from the UK. My notes are backwards. That always messes everything up. It's a face mage from Jackie Chan. It is the control priest. That's pretty hard work for the mage.
Yeah, it can be indeed, especially because the priest has a lot of healing, and you are really going to struggle if the mage is just kind of pushing all that damage and then they lose it all because the healing comes back up. As then game number 2 is going to be Rogue versus Paladin, Warlock versus Hunter, and then we have Mage, Priest, and if we need it, of course, Shaman and Druid there as well. Interesting to see which kind of players are chose to play twice as well. From the United Kingdom, it is Toast Monster that was apparently chosen to be that player who has more games under his belt, and I think that's a good pick for the United Kingdom, don't you?
Multiple reasons. First of all, obviously Jackie Chan and Bor, as I've already mentioned, probably going to be a bit tired, flew home yesterday, but also going forward, I think Toast Monster looked slightly nervous last week. Oh, wow. And he's not a nervous guy. You've seen him at UK Prem. He's fine. But I felt last week he was just a little bit nervous. And so get him some exposure, get him out there so that there's a lot of weeks of this tournament. Make it so he gets a bit more comfortable in front of the camera.
I think playing in your own environment is a lot easier than playing under a team environment as well, because when you have 3 other very good players all kind of judging your performance and telling you about that performance, it is always going to be a little bit more difficult. Well, game number 1 of this series then, as we said, is going to be Mage for the United Kingdom, and we're going to have Sweden piloting the Priest here. It's going to be difficult for the United Kingdom to try and get through all of this damage, but it is entirely possible.
Yeah, the problem is you need to get that minion damage in, and obviously the Priest is a control deck. It controls those early minions, and if they don't get any minion damage in, the healing just gets you out of range of the burn. Of course, there's always a Luneth. And there's also just good draws can happen if you set up counter spells and explosive runes. Sometimes the Mage can just tempo you out of any matchup, but nothing too spectacular in their opening hand so far. But also, Sweden don't have a particularly great hand either. Oh, talking of spectacular, it changed.
It did change quite considerably, very quickly for the United Kingdom. On the other side, for Sweden, they are really going to be looking for Duskbreakers, for example, just to be able to try and get back in this matchup if there is Mana Worms and Archaeologists they have to deal with. Well, Mana Worms, Archaeologists, and Kirin Tor Mages as well.
Yeah, the Archaeologist curves nicely into the Kirin Tor with the spell afterwards. Japan there 2-1 ahead. Croatia's life in this tournament just hanging by a thread.
Yeah, they're just about clinging on. Of course, if Croatia do lose one more in that series, they will be eliminated from the Hearthstone Global Games, as they will fall to 0-3 in the Swiss, which will be good night.
Yeah, if you get the 3 losses, you just get kicked out. We don't make people linger around when they can't qualify for that later stage. Surprisingly, Jackie Chan elected to play Mana Worm on turn 1.
Yeah, Jackie Chan, known for his wacky plays, but I think that was a relatively straightforward one for him. Almost as straightforward as that sentence was for me. As Sweden pick up both Swampoos and Pyromancer. Now, it's good that they did find the Pyromancer, mainly because ideally you want to keep back that Swampoos just in case an Luneth does come into play a little bit later. Now they've got something that can directly contest this Mana Worm, and they're not throwing away that Battle Cry of the Swampoos.
They are, however, throwing away, I'm at it now, the Pyromancer, which is fine, but you really want to keep that to try and remove some more minions. But with such big health totals, you probably don't get to anyway, so challenging the board seems reasonable.
I mean, if I'm messing up my W's as well, we really are doomed.
Yeah, then we are bad. At least I don't have to say Lorinda very often. You do, so that would be awkward as heck.
And yeah, Sweden are just going to play this Pyromancer because they had to just contest with this Mana Worm because it can get out of control, and a Frostbolt immediately allows now the United Kingdom to take control of the board once again if they would like to. Do you see a play that you would prefer, Neil, or do you just think Frostbolt, take out this Pyromancer, send damage to face?
Frostbolt seems really natural. They do need to pay consideration to the fact they've got an Archaeologist and a Kirin Tor. They want to curve into each other, get to the secret and then play the Kirin Tor. So definitely worth looking at other plays, but nothing really makes sense otherwise. If they had a secret in their hand, it'd be much different. Obviously, you just trade in the Mana Worm, hit them, but Frostbolt looks really good right now. But it does kind of mess up the rest of their game to some extent. They're going to lose mana in a tempo deck, because some people still call this tempo mage. Then you are giving stuff away.
Yeah, we don't like those people.
I don't like any people.
No, this is
don't even like you.
I realised this the moment I walked through the building this morning, Neil. It's all right. I saw your judgmental eyes.
That's just my eyes.
They are scary.
So, Orange and Sweden obviously really need to deal with this Mana Worm, and but like you said, they don't want to burn the Swampoos.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if they didn't draw the Pyromancer, whether they would have just played the Swampoos as a matter of urgency now. Thankfully, they drew into the Acolyte, which allows them at least to do something on this turn, rather than have to try and make that decision about the Swampoos. This is really going to play into the hands of the United Kingdom.
This is the decision turn for me for the United Kingdom. There's a lot of choices available. We've already discussed the way the mana's not working out nice. Playing a spell seems nice because you can just get rid of this Acolyte before it does a load of damage. But you do need to get that face damage. It's really awkward. What they don't want is the Acolyte to jump into the Mana Worm for 2 cards.
This is the thing, it's what you consider to be more important for you as the Mage. The face damage or stopping your opponent drawing into those impactful cards like, for example, Duskbreaker, that might be able to just swing everything back in Sweden's favour. So you could coin out a Life Drinker, which would allow you to just trade in the Mana Worm, get some damage to face, and put 2 3/3s on the board. I'm kind of liking the look of that.
The only problem with that play, and I sort of, it catches my eye too, is the next turn is so messy if you do with
Agreed.
a whole of 3 drops with 4 mana, just doesn't use your mana efficiently. So they may just try something different here. But no, they are going to go with that play, which means the mana was good, but they can just hit face because obviously the Acolyte Unless there is a powered shield in hand, the Acolyte's just not going to do much. And if there is, you're going to have to eat 6.
Yeah, and you've seen the Pyromancer as well, so naturally you are more comfortable sending the damage to face because you feel like they are going to struggle to get 2 draws out of this Acolyte. And speaking of struggling, it's going to have to probably be a Shadow Visions to try and find something impactful here for Sweden and Orange. And Orange was always known for kind of piloting Priest very successfully, especially during the Razaka's Priest days. I was always a big fan of Orange and how he performed with that deck, so I think if anyone can find a victory with Priest, it's probably Orange.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with that. He's going to Shadow Vision. What can we dig out? It's a Mind Blast, a Psychic Scream, or a Holy Fire.
I suppose Psychic Scream comes in handy a little bit later on if the board is quite scary. From the United Kingdom, Holy Fire naturally allows you to heal yourself up, which is something you're always going to be considering in this matchup. Mind Blast, less so. Don't think that's going to be the consideration here. Yeah,
if they wanted to, if it was a bit closer, maybe they try and race, but nowhere near with this deck. It's a bit too slow for that, so he does go for the Holy Fire. Should buy him plenty of time in conjunction with that Divine Hymn.
Ooh, and yep, now you're just having to use this Swamp Ooze, which doesn't feel great, but desperate times do call for desperate oozes.
Desperate oozes indeed. Nice pickup here for the UK. They know there's almost certainly no Duskbreaker in hand from the panic-ridden turn there from Sweden. So just dropping down 2 minions and a hefty smack to the face looks pretty good.
And that Amani Berserker does now make this turn a little bit more easy, more comfortable for the United Kingdom. You were saying, Neil, that it's going to be a struggle because the mana wasn't great, but now Archaeologist plus Amani Berserker. I kind of like it.
The only problem if they do that, what do you do with the Acolyte of Pain? Do you just ignore it and hit 6 to face? It does give your opponents an extra card. Or do you want to trade into it? You slow yourself down, so you have to start counting how many turns you think lethal is. Will that 3 damage matter? And it probably will.
Maybe trade your Life Drinker into the Ooze just to disallow any sort of value trade from your opponent, potentially. You are setting yourself up heavily for a Duskbreaker, though, if you are going to go down that route.
So they're going to ignore the Armani, and next turn they're going to play Archaeologist Kirin Tor. So they're clearing the board now.
Jackie laughing there because I think he had a sigh of relief, because I think he was slightly concerned that maybe all the Cinderstorm was just going to go face and he wasn't going to be able to make the trade. But for a favoured matchup, in some would say, for the Priest, they're really struggling to keep up with this one, and it all comes down to really that lack of a Duskbreaker. It can be so different if you have that on turn 4 and you suddenly gain the board control.
But look at the amount of damage they're going to be able to save over the next few turns here. Bit of a toughie here whether to play the shield or not, because they want to Divine Him and heal face, but they also want to draw cards. And so I think they will make sure they're okay with only Divine Him and Powered Shield, and then do that if they think 21's a safe enough number.
I think when we look at this board state as well, you realise how important that Frostbolt draw was on turn 2 for Jackie Chan.
Yep. Yeah, it's made such a massive difference. This Mana Worm is just doing the thing that everybody hates about Mana Worms, and now the Archaeologist turn they set up last time is going to come into play, and this is all going to get a bit naughty.
Which secret would you prefer to draw off this Archaeologist, do you feel?
I mean, Counterspell stops the Holy Fire. They know a spell's been taken from the Shadow Visions, so I think they want the Counterspell.
Unfortunately, get the Explosive Runes. We have many, but I don't think they'll mind too much.
Exactly.
It's at the end of the day, it all works very well with their mana, and they can still push a lot of damage to face.
There's no Dragon in hand either, so even if they pick up the Duskbreaker here...
And even though that we can see it's the Explosive Runes, Orange cannot see that. He has to be very aware that this could be a counterspell, and if you Holy Fire into a counterspell, you probably just lose the next turn.
However, it may be one of those situations where they know it's a random secret. They know it's the one that came off the deck. They know there wasn't a secret earlier because that Kirin Tor was in the opening hand and they would have played it on 3. So Orange may just go, look, it's a 50-50. We know it's a 50-50. Eyes closed. Point spell, hope.
Point spell, hope. Sounds like a rap album that you should probably invent.
Yeah, I'll do that. Oops.
And Jackie was just contemplating with the team there. As you could see, he was discussing heavily with the rest of the UK guys. Do I trade into this Northshire Cleric? But they value the damage to face instead. And well, how are your odds on a 50-50, Neil? What are you feeling?
I mean, they have no other play. that makes any really
No, because
sense.
if they're worried about counterspell, they can't even go down the play of Power Word Shield into a Duskbreaker because, I mean, well, there's no dragons.
And what's the other play? Shadow Visions. If it gets countered, you Power Shield and try and draw things. They're looking. I think what they'll do is instantly recognise they need to go for the 50-50 and then spend the whole turn trying to work out combinations of Powered Shields and Shadow Visions in case there's a better. So you can play Powered Shield, for instance. I'm not saying this is good. Get it countered, play Shadow Visions, find a Divine Hymn, buy some more time that way. Or you can take the 50-50. They've got to weigh up which of those is better. And it's pretty clear the 50-50 is better.
Do or die for Sweden, and they'll have the moment of relief knowing that they are going to survive at least a few more turns.
Yeah, unless the counterspell comes off the top, then that could be the end.
Glyph is nice, allows United Kingdom to have that little bit of a dig for extra damage when they might need it.
Yeah, they're going into Psychic Scream turn as well, so... Oh.
I'm not sure Alunith is going to matter too much now at this point. Maybe... It's hard to say Alunith isn't going to matter, considering it is one of the most impactful cards around, in my opinion.
It is, yeah, it's just absolutely gigantic in so many matchups. Interesting they chose to draw cards there. They did have better options in terms of minions, as Croatia definitely hanging on in there.
Oh, wow.
And it might be Japan that's going home.
Going all the way to
back to where you just came from.
Yeah, it was a great flight. It only took me 24 hours to get here.
If they get knocked out, do we just send you back?
Please don't. I mean, Japan's a great place.
Please don't. What's wrong with Japan?
Wrong. It's a lovely place, but it took 24 hours to get here. It's not a travel day I want to experience anytime soon.
And it was actually a travel day.
Yes. And,
so that was interesting for me from the UK. I know they didn't have any face damage, but it looks like they didn't want to develop anything in case of Psychic Scream. They feel they win if there's no Psychic Scream. But this second Holy Fire is actually going to be annoying for them.
Or a Duskbreaker, but that can't be used, unfortunately.
Not yet, but obviously they can buy a little more time with this Holy Fire. Of course, they're sitting there worrying about fireballs and things. Yeah, Jackie's waving his arms about, like, where's our burn?
Yeah, exactly.
Toast Monster, why didn't you put burn in our deck? It's your fault.
It's all down to because he was left to make the decks. Imagine that. Imagine, like, one player being solely responsible for decks and then just completely ruining the archetype.
It's just like, here's Minion Mage. What could go wrong? Jackie Chan is playing a perfectly normal deck here, and he still finds a way to get Shifting Scroll in his hand, just to make sure it's not normal.
I know the UK players would definitely say... Toastmonster, actually, in his interview yesterday on the community show, said that Jackie's been relatively reserved with what he's wanted to bring and what he's wanted to play.
And then he plays giant Shaman Overload stuff at Seat Storage, just to get his release.
Exactly. The man enjoys a good game of Hearthstone, and he enjoys the fun interactions you can have with it.
He does.
As we're talking about burn, well, Cinderstorm, I guess, can be considered burn, but when there's a 1/5 minion on the board that could just absorb every one of those missiles, it's not too great. Are you ever considering a Lunith? I don't think you are, but I'm going to pose the question anyway.
So now they've seen there's no Psychic Scream, I think they're in a good position to just lump minions onto the board. 38% chance of getting Counterspell, there it is. I think they like that. Don't see that either of the other two are any better.
Yeah, I don't see where Mana Bind would be particularly useful in this situation.
Let's heal myself for 6.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey!
I mean, in some cases where a Lunith fatigues you down, maybe healing is actually needed, but I don't think a Lunith is going to see players.
Orange needs a dragon.
Yep, you need to find something to be able to clear this board. Mind Blast is not going to be it, though.
So now they need Shadow Visions for a powered shield and try and draw a dragon is the first thing that comes to mind. And it's just going to... So
Anduin gets you up to 16, but you haven't seen any burn thus far. So you're very scared about that.
16 and, yeah, Fireball would be lethalizing you. It's a word, right?
It can be.
It is now.
You have that power, Neil.
I do have the power to make words, and I do it quite often.
My parents always told me to respect my elders, so if you want to invent those words, I will allow you to do so.
Thank you. I like the new cards. They seem to all be named after things I have said on broadcast before. I'm going to floop out my card.
Floopity wibbly wop.
This is going to get countered. What they want to do is Mind Blast and then do this, but then they don't have the mana for the shield. Ouch.
So now their only alternative is healing up to look for a dragon.
Yeah.
And they're
They
throwing
look
the
like they've got one,
Dustbreaker.
unless they're just playing it anyway, whatever comes.
They are just playing it anyway. Unfortunately, Orange doesn't find a dragon. And Jackie Chan and the United Kingdom are going to be able to find a victory with this aggro mage. And a hearty laugh as well from Jackie Chan, as I think they all had that moment of panic when the Dustbreaker was thrown onto the board. As did we. We hadn't even seen the card, and I was like, did they draw it? Did they get it? And Jackie just having a little laugh with the UK team as well.
That's nice.
It's nice. They're all good friends.
Will they laugh if they go behind, though?
Oh, well, now we're getting into the serious questions.
Just start crying.
I'd like to think that the United Kingdom in general have a pretty good attitude.
I think,
Like,
yeah.
You've got some of the best players in the world now. Ball control.
Yeah.
I would definitely consider him as one of the top players. He just proved himself at a very high reputation tournament. So if you've got him behind you, you should be in a comfortable spot.
Yeah, I think that works well. Especially, he's grown up a lot as well. I think last year he was a bit moody. And he still is. But he knows how to focus that now. He knows how not to let that affect anything now.
His whole stream idea is about being moody. Let's see what game is going to be coming up next then. We do have Boston, who's going to be playing on his Rogue, and it's going to be Green Sheep on his Paladin. So that is the odd Paladin for Green Sheep, and it is the odd Rogue for Boston as well. So we're going to be looking at basically who can find that early tempo early on. We've got the important factor of the hero power for Green Sheep, which is going to allow him to go wide on the board, which the Rogue typically can struggle with. They do struggle with a wide board of little pesky minions.
Yeah, and Rogue doesn't have basically any way to deal with it that they choose to play, because Fan of Knives is so slow if you're trying to kill somebody rapidly. And so the Paladin will try and go wide as possible, and the Rogue will just try and...
Was concerned what that said on the lower third, but it did say Gaskin's pick.
Yeah.
The United Kingdom. We
can talk about that.
We can talk about that, but I didn't actually choose them. They got chosen for me. Just want to say that I chose Ukraine, and before I had time to choose my second pick, I was already told I had to pick the United Kingdom. So sorry for the whole of England. Basically, that's how it happened.
Because there's no way you'd have picked them. You hate the United Kingdom that much.
To be fair...
So don't put this onto us. We picked them because we thought you liked your home country.
And I think I probably would have picked the United Kingdom, or at least considered them. They would have been in my top 3 picks.
Because you've been a major part of the UK scene in terms of establishing the scene, building it up with the Premiership and so on.
Stop.
That's why we would never win anything.
No, this is true. I've known some of these players since they were wee boys. They were just little lads. I say that, they haven't really grown much. But Ball Control, for example, UK tournaments he's been competing in. Toast Monster made a big impact on the UK Premiership recently as well. So it's nice to see some of these players rising through the ranks. But on the other side, for Sweden, I mean, Orange is, of course, a big name. But some of those other names, they, of course, want to make an impact as well. They want to be as big as Orange, surely. Yeah,
Boston's been a very solid player for a long time. Hasn't quite made it in terms of the public eye, but if you'll see him around a lot of these tour stock top 16s and late Swiss featured matches and so on. He's very good. But Arcade and Kenobi, basically unheard of outside of Sweden. And as was the Swedish vote this year was kind of weird because Show wasn't in there.
Yeah.
And sort of Powder doesn't really play strongly anymore, nor does Oskaka. So it's a little bit of a rebuild for Sweden. And again, with those two possibly having to do more of the prep than normal, and the Swedish scene, the UK scene, even though it's not that strong outside of Ball Control and Green Sheep, it's not bad. It still makes a name for itself because the characters are so lively. That's not just me saying that because I'm from that particular country. They're just insane people.
I mean, they are characters. I mean, if you look at what people did to try and get into the global games both last year and this year, the United Kingdom made rap videos last year. Do you remember Green Sheep rapping? If you didn't see it, YouTube it and find Green Sheep rapping.
I'd forgotten.
It's hilarious. And when you now watch this game and you consider how good a Hearthstone player he is and how terrible a rapper he is, you will definitely enjoy yourself.
I was in his stream when he was trying to make that rap.
Oh my goodness.
And he just kept doing it. Everyone kept saying, no, do it again. And he did it like 7 times. And each time he messed up a different line. And in the end, he just went, I'm submitting this. This will do.
I remember watching, there was an article submitted on Green Sheep's rap, and it showed the different iterations of how it evolved from messing up to just eventually giving up. But then other people rapped as well. Jackie Chan did a rap.
But he's good.
He's good at rapping?
Yeah.
He's okay. And then there was, I know Jumbre, he didn't make it this year, but another UK player, he made a very funny skit video about dead cards and him trying to bring them back to life. It's amazing to see players in Hearthstone try and bring a little bit of personality to themselves, because it's what we need to see. It's why people are going to be voting for them and why they're going to get into the Hearthstone Global Games, after, of course, the important factor of just being a good player. And
if you saw the community show yesterday, you know that Toast Monster just toasted 7 loaves of bread.
Actually, no, I'm going to call him out here. He didn't toast them all. He grilled some. He grilled some of the toast, and I am furious about it, because you don't grill toast. You toast toast.
Especially if you're like called Toast Monster. You're not called Grill Monster.
Exactly. That's a completely different monster. Anyway, game number 2, Green Sheep is going to be on the odd Paladin, and Boston is going to be over on the odd Rogue. 2 Vicious Fledglings on offer, but he is on the coin.
And the Creeper is pretty good for the UK here. But yeah, the double Fledgling makes things pretty rapid here for Boston. Because the Paladin doesn't really get rid of them easily at all, unless it draws them all.
They can struggle sometimes. They might have to use Blessing of Might, for example, on something like an Argent Squire that can be able to trade off for them. In the United Kingdom's Paladin list, something that maybe is a little bit different from what we see on the other side of Sweden's list is the Boisterous Bards, which have come into, well, quite a popular position as of late in Paladin, because of course it allows you to just bust up the health on some of your minions, which can help out survive in mirrors.
Yeah, so originally it was in there just for the mirror, and then I think this is a lay messed around with it and realised, hang on, this one health just matters surprisingly often.
Yeah.
It's oddly enough that when you've got one bigger on all your numbers, you know, like when you have golden cards, for instance, everything gets a small buff.
Yeah.
It turns out that +1/+1 is actually insanely big.
And it synergizes well with Void Ripper as well. Sometimes you can just find that extra little bit of burst damage. As the first few turns go, usually how they go about with Odd Rogue versus Paladin, it's usually getting a few tokens on the board, being able to try and make yourself not too susceptible to any easy trades.
Yeah, carry on.
Are you okay? You're looking at me very strange.
Just translating subjectable.
Oh, sorry. Is that a bad word?
It's a great word.
All right. Yeah. Am I making up words now?
Yes.
Am I doing a you?
You're stealing my gimmick.
What was the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
You don't even know.
I'd have just made up subjectable myself.
Subjective? No.
Meanwhile, Green Sheep there choosing to trade. Green Sheep, an incredibly powerful aggro player, finds the minimum number of trades he needs to. Gaskin's still thinking about subjectable things.
What word was I trying to say?
Subjective sounds decent.
I don't know.
Subjectable sounds fine. It gets the point across.
Let's go with vulnerable. I think that works better. That seems to be a better word. Probably what I was looking for. We got there in the end, everybody.
Really awkward starts for the Paladin here, but it doesn't last long before they start buffing everything up and playing corridor creepers, Leroy you in the face. Just good things happen.
It does still amaze me that in this day and age, Raid Leader is in actually a deck. It's actually in one of the best decks around right now.
We should point out as well that Sweden threw away the fledgling. Sorry to just cut you there. Because we were talking about how those things were going to be aggressive, but it feels like Sweden felt the urge to actually have cheaper minions in their opening hand. That 2/3 drops on coin wasn't quick enough.
Yeah, they wanted to find things like SI7 Agent, for example, which has allowed them to keep a little bit ahead on the board. The one thing about keeping the Vicious Fledglings is by plopping 3/3s onto the board, when your opponent's going wide, you are offering up those buff potentials for the Paladin, and you really need to stay ahead with minions like Argent Squire and Southsea Deckhand that can stop the UK from going too wide too early on.
I think they'll be looking now to try and sneak in a weapon charge, because that's obviously something that removes 2 of these Paladins. This is why the matchup is hard for the Rogue. Their hero power kills 2 things over 2 turns, and the Paladin makes 2 things over 1 turn. Even though value-wise the Rogue power is much better, doesn't matter. It can't keep up.
It's actually funny, really, isn't it? Because the Miracle Rogue, with their hero power, just the 1 damage is usually enough.
Yeah.
And Miracle Rogue typically has that Fan of Knives, which really helps, and it's a good AoE damage.
Sweden are very unsure here. I know that Orange and Boston play quite different styles of Hearthstone. And style is a thing, by the way. Just going to throw that out there. I know it annoys some people, but it is.
Well,
you can't know everything. Yes, perfect play exists, but you can't. It's like perfect play exists in chess too.
I mean, we can definitely talk about style when Green Sheep is appearing.
Yeah.
I think, again, it was yesterday in Toast Monster's interview, as by the way, the Corridor Creeper finally comes down. It's important. You were saying this earlier. But United Kingdom, they had an interview yesterday. Toastmonster said it's really influential having a player like Green Sheep because he does just pause for a second and say, hey, what if we just send all of this damage to face? What happens in that next turn? And that is just his playstyle. He sometimes just goes down the most aggressive route possible.
But as you're seeing here, he's found the most aggressive route possible is to not hit your opponent in this game, get control of this board, and then the weight of numbers is just going to be pretty terrifying when they do finally start getting control of the board, which slowly but surely it looks like the UK are doing.
Yeah, Boston can use the deckhand here to take out the Corridor Creeper and then just put the Argent Squire if he wants to, but he's going to take the value trade instead. Or he's going to, okay, yeah, he can use the Cold Blood just to trade off. This works out nicely.
You can see how hard it is for Sweden here. I mean, they are clearing the board every turn, but slowly but surely the resource battle is being lost. They're down to 3 cards, and look at those cards. I mean, Tar Creeper could be handy. Blink Fox, which has like the best battle cry in the game right now, is, in terms of the sound effects, not necessarily the effect, is going to keep their hand size up. But meanwhile, the UK are just using their hero power, going wide and making it harder and harder for the rogue to keep up.
Yeah, the Firefly's a really big pickup as well. Just works out really well with the mana curve. They can go extremely wide now. The Tar Creeper is going to be an annoyance, though, if Sweden do decide to throw that down.
But they're in a position where Raid Leader or Leroy are both fine for killing a Tar Creeper because they can just trade into the Whelps if they need to. And Sweden needs to get something hefty soon. It's pretty hefty. Kills a 1 or 2.
Is it Vast Mind Slayer's hefty?
Yeah.
It's up there in the scale of heftiness.
It plants itself into the ground and just hefties you.
About an 8 out of 10 of hefty.
Yeah, 8.
Where are you on the scale rankings of hefty?
It depends on your definition of hefty. If you mean like...
Well, I'm wondering what your definition of hefty is.
I look pretty hefty.
You think you're hefty?
But then if you get me into a sort of hefty off with somebody, I'm going to be on the floor first.
Who would win a hefty off between you and I?
Me.
Okay, well, I think we have the same agreement of what hefty means.
Thanks. And probably so do chat. Moving swiftly on from BMI talk, we're going to find out Sweden's course of action here. Are they desperate enough to need a Blink Fox, or do they think the Tar Creeper will stick?
I think it's too difficult to... you can't avoid playing Tar Creeper here. The Tar Creeper is just too good against this board. And yes, okay, you are vulnerable to any buffs, but the Blink Fox is just bad.
Ooh.
In this scenario.
Yeah, I agree.
You made a little bird noise at me.
That was the Blink Fox noise.
Oh.
But I sort of swallowed it as I went, and it just all went wrong. So that's my sound effects done for the next 5 weeks, I'm afraid. I'm not doing it again. She's going to laugh at me.
Good. There we go. I saved the whole of the global games just in 30 seconds.
That's done. Absolutely sorted.
Well, Blessing might be picked up. That works really nicely to comfortably deal with this Tar Creeper now.
Because you didn't want to do the Leroy way forward, but it may have been more efficient. But now it's just beautiful. You get to hero power again. And, I mean, you can see Boston's look on his face throughout this whole game has just been one of, yeah, that wasn't fun. Just not a fun matchup for us.
And sometimes that's how it goes. A matchup can just be unenjoyable for you because it feels like you can't do anything to win a game. But you will find those times where you find that extra 1% of drawing the most impactful card here or there, and then suddenly it gets all exciting again. And actually, Firefly being picked up here, at least it manages to allow Boston to go relatively wide himself.
Yeah, that's relevant because Green Sheep had the choice between putting the Blessing on the 2-2 or the 2-1, which, okay, in normal Hearthstone, it's always the 2-2. But you have level up in this deck. So keeping the dudes alive is a big thing. However, I think they've decided if they draw level up, they win the game. So we don't need the extra dude, but this extra point of health means that you can trade into the Firefly and subsidiary bits and pieces, and your minion will stay alive. That was actually a bigger decision than they just blasted it out there, but there was actually quite a lot going on there.
Many options.
And I think that is the brains of 4 fantastic players being mixed with one of the, well, most famous aggro players.
That sounds like a horrible science experiment.
It
mixing
really does.
brains together.
That's a Boomsday card for you.
Yeah, brain mix.
Put 4 UK players together and see what the result is.
You can put 4 old gods together and get like a Yogi, Cthulhu,
Boar. Control.
Yeah.
Boar Control's basically a god at this
Imagine if you got the wrong 4 UK players. Sorry. Yeah, he is basically a god.
The wrong 4 UK
But
players.
you get Dan SWF and Paradox in the same head.
Please never put that thought in my head again, as Japan, I believe, take a 3-2 victory over Croatia. I think I am reading that one correctly.
You are reading that correctly.
Okay, just wanted to double check because I didn't want to get too excited, but that does mean Croatia are eliminated from the global games, whereas Japan live to fight another day.
Remember that one? That's a trivia question for next year. Who was the first team eliminated in the 2018 HCG?
Yeah, not going to be any pub quizzes probably.
How do you know?
Well, okay, maybe it will.
Maybe at a LAN?
This is true. LAN quizzes do exist, as Green Sheep is continuing just to send damage towards the face. He is now finally considering about making any sort of trade onto this Firefly, but they're in a really comfortable spot now. The Fungalmancer was a huge pickup for the United Kingdom because their turn was looking pretty awkward otherwise. Yeah,
Green Sheep just go... The 1-2 in theory can 2-for-1 with the recruits, but just making sure he thinks he gets there a turn quicker or not if he goes face. It's all about counting, which is something I'm really bad at.
I'd say you're all right.
I get to 12, then I run out of fingers.
I think the trade does make sense here.
He feels that he hasn't is not like to have lethal next turn, so therefore you play the minuscule amount of value gain that you get from that trade.
And now I am going to stop you from making the sound effect because Blinkfox makes it for us, and I don't think that is going to save you. They were kind of looking for any sort of last-ditch attempt here, at hoping they could draw something significant that might keep them in this matchup, but it's slowly snowballing out of control now, and the Paladin of Green Sheep is just one draw away from really winning this game.
Yeah, and even if they're not, they're still on 30. They have time to draw things to get them back in. If somehow by some miracle this reverses, which it's just not going to do.
Must I slay you again?
And Sweden were, when they drew that, they were kind of saying, have we got any Argent Squires left? Yeah, but they don't. Vinecleaver picked up as well now. All the big tools you want towards the end of a game.
So Vinecleaver, and Leroy is 14 points of hurty, which means they can afford to make all the trades they want if they want to. Anything they want to do, they're going to win next turn unless they somehow lose to maybe the second Tar Creeper. If there is a second Tar Creeper, which we're both scrambling to find, who's going to get there first?
No.
I get the waggly finger.
Waggly finger towards your face. There is only one Tar Creeper available for the Rogue, which is going to be sad news for them. No taunts to put in the way. However, there is another Blinkfox. Maybe a Blinkfox could help them out. Don't make that noise. You're looking at me like you're going to make the noise again, and I've banned it. It is banned for at least 24 hours.
Right, I'm noting that down. 23 hours, 59 minutes, 53 seconds. Ow. There you go.
It's going to terrify me when tomorrow you just woo at me for no random reason, as Deadly Poison isn't going to save Sweden here. And it looks like United Kingdom, they're going to go 2-0 up. And you know what? There was a lot of questions about the United Kingdom coming into this tournament because they didn't have the best of years last year. Let's be honest. They went
were
out
rubbish.
Yeah, if we put it bluntly, rubbish indeed.
Not only did they go out, but they just took Romania out with them. By being so rubbish, they just didn't give Romania's tiebreakers correct.
Yeah, just upsetting a fan favourite, one of our favourites, RDU as well, because everyone loves RDU, but United Kingdom now 2-0 up, and Sweden, another team that are fantastic, are going to fall. And that was a
lame effort.
Half wave. Did he drop it? Come on, Green Sheep.
It was just awful, Sheep. Next week we want the flag waved properly or not at all. Either or. Don't half up. You know, just wrap it up like you did before.
Like maybe he was like hoping if he was game 3, then maybe he would have waved it a little bit higher. But because it's only game 2, he's like, I'll give it a half wave, just at half mast, the flag at the moment, and we'll get it right to the top if the United Kingdom do win. But we are going to go for a very quick break to allow the players to have a rest. But don't go anywhere, because we are going to continue this series after this. Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Global Games. We're currently amidst the series between the United Kingdom and Sweden. It's 2-0 to the United Kingdom, and there's a smile on my face, mainly because the United Kingdom is the team that I chose for predictions. Also, because I'm from the United Kingdom, so that helps as well.
You didn't choose them, though. We chose them for you.
But I kind of chose them because I told you with my brain.
Earlier on, when he thought they might lose, it's like, I didn't pick them. Now they're winning. I chose it all by myself.
Yeah, exactly. I think actually in the video for the Hearthstone Global Games that's shown before the show starts, they cut out the bit where they said, what does the Hearthstone Global Games mean to you? And I said, supporting the team that knocks out the United Kingdom. Because naturally, that's what I did last year, is I just followed the team that knocked us out, because We had to do something.
They all knocked up. We lost like 1 million games.
Yeah, we lost to everyone and everything. Anyway, it is 2-0 to United Kingdom. We are going to head into game number 3 soon. Game number 3 is going to be Hunter versus Warlock. It's going to be ball control on the side of the Hunter. It is the Death Rattle Hunter as Keliseth is found. And on the other side for Kenobi, he's going to be playing the Even Lock.
Yeah, and Kenobi, very slightly favoured for me. There's a lot of discussion about this matchup, but basically, if Warlock can use the 4s, use their Giants, use their Twilight Drakes, they should be in a good shape early on. But on the other side, obviously, if the United Kingdom can get the board, the Hunter deck can deliver a lot of damage and unstoppable damage really quickly too.
When I was looking at the differences between these two Hunter decks that were available for United Kingdom and Sweden, one of the main ones for the UK was having Keliseth. Sweden actually opted for the Loot Hoarder version. My preference personally is the Keliseth version, but I feel like it's whether you are just you feel like you're going to draw Keliseth or not. It's how comfortable you are, how confident you are. As there is the Mountain Giants we were talking about as well. Yes, if this game goes late on, I feel like Hunter is going to be favoured because they have that much refill potential. They can go so wide with the cubes, etc. I mean, if you can cube ashore, we've already seen what happens in a series earlier today. But if Mountain Giant comes out, if Hooked Reavers come onto the board, it's really hard for the Hunter to keep up with that pace of sheer amount of damage.
Ball control, trying to work out how to set up that damage with this tracking. You don't really want to tracking on turn 1, but the Firefly does nothing. It just runs into Giants and it's just not happy. But by playing tracking on 1, you feel you'll curve out nicely for the egg, but you have less information about what you want. That's why there was a conversation to be had even on turn 1 there.
And it does feel slightly bad throwing away King Crush because, of course, that makes your Katharina terrible later on, or at least worse later on. But you have rewarded yourself with a Devilsaur Egg, and what is this deck fantastic at doing? Winning when it has Devilsaur Eggs, because you can just able to trigger all those Death Rattles early on, and then your opponent really struggles. Ball controlling the United Kingdom, really recognizing how they would lose this matchup, and how they need to keep up with the pace early on in the game.
Ball controls, Seat Story trophy behind him there on the top shelf of his...
Finally his first trophy
Finally
on
has
the
a cabinet.
bookshelf.
Is it, in some ways, having one trophy on display reminds everybody you haven't won anything else?
Yeah. When there was no trophies, it just looks like a bookshelf, but now it looks like a trophy shelf.
That's empty.
It is empty.
He has won various UK events and he's had lots of high finishes, but it is kind of amusing that...
And to be fair, the trophies he won then, he wasn't allowed to take home.
Was he not?
I don't think so.
That's pretty grim.
That is, yeah, it's one of those, it's like a World Cup,
I mean,
right?
it is the UK, right? We can't afford
Exactly.
2 trophies over a period of only 2 years.
But it's one of those trophies that kind of circulates. Meanwhile, for ball control, he got Keliseth out on 2, and Kenobi is kind of just drawing through, tapping his way to the Mountain Giant, of course. Mosky Horror being included, which a lot of people are including in many decks now, and it makes sense not only in Hunter to help you against the Token Druid, but it also can kill off Devilsaur Eggs as well. Sometimes that can be important.
It can, like the first egg you don't usually want to kill off, but later on when you've cubed eggs and weird things going, you just want an army of 5/5s. Tough decision for Sweden, by the way, here, because they can just make an 8/8, which is nice, but that leaves them open to play deads and just activate it on the egg. So if they want to silence the egg, that's fine as well for the United Kingdom, because they've just gained a turn where they're not being slapped about by a giant mountain.
Yeah, I can't imagine that's very fun. Really?
No, it's not.
It's like climbing a mountain and only getting halfway because the air pressure gets bad.
Yeah, that must be not nice. But Kenobi's not showing any signs of the pressure right now. He's listening intently to what his teammates are having to say, which is a very strong role, actually. I think it's underrated. We spoke to a lot of teams last year, and they kept saying, oh, if only some of my friends would shut up.
Yeah, listening is a very important factor. It's something that several people need to learn.
Don't look at me like that when you're speaking.
There's that play dead you were talking about as well. There is that chance to get a 5/5 on the board if you want. It's not the ideal time to use a play dead. And naturally, ball control would have wanted to play Houndmaster Shore here, but Houndmaster Shore does just get beaten up by that Mountain Giant.
It's one turn. I mean, I think you're right. I think they want to wait, but it's one turn more. Anytime the Mountain Giant's not hitting you in the mush is one more turn that you're scrambling to victory with your eggs. And
that's one, by the way.
I'm not going to overdo the egg jokes. There's just too many egg hunters. We will go crazy.
You just literally just said another egg joke when you said you're not going to overdo the egg joke.
Yeah, I don't like cracking jokes. So, obviously Boar here going face is fun, but it activates the 7/7s, but they've got no other choice. If the Hook Reavers get activated, that's just tough. And again, forcing as much damage on the board as possible there. They are actually going to tiptoe around the Hooked Reaver a little bit here.
Yeah, I have seen people play various styles against Warlock by not even pushing damage, for example, by keeping them so far away from the Hook Reavers that it's silly. And I just think that that is a bad approach to a game. You push the damage, and then you hope that you have the way of dealing with the Hook Reavers, or at least play around it across a couple of turns, not across like 5 or 6. I think that's just flat out wrong.
But this is establishing a situation, I remember that when it happened at some point as well, where what's this giant going to do? What's it supposed to do here? You can trade into it next turn if you want to, so maybe it just hits you in the face, but keeping the Warlock off the board is very important indeed in this matchup. And these white boards are fantastic. And Boar has shown a really good understanding of this. He took, in one matchup the other day, he took a Firefly instead of Rexar in a match and just tried to out-tempo somebody.
Almost out of time.
Now, there were options for Sweden there to use tools like Hellfire if they wanted to clear the egg off the board, make sure there wasn't going to be any potential cubing possibilities, any play dead possibilities, but they are just going to go down the more aggressive route of putting a Twilight Drake on the board and saying, well, what have you got to offer here?
I'll tell you what UK have got to offer, and that is not a lot. This Mossy Horror is pretty grim, plus it costs too much mana. Sure, you don't want to lose, but you probably have to play it for the tempo, and obviously the second candle shot is just, yeah, right now.
Yeah, the candle shot might come in handy later just to clear off anything.
Yeah, I'm sure the Twilight Drake's quaking in its boot.
Yeah, really afraid.
Go down to only a 9.
But at least Ball Control will be happy he's got Shaw on the board now, where it's not just traded off immediately.
Yes.
There needs to be an answer from Kenobi's hand. The answers are there. Although, what do you prefer? Spellstone?
I mean, yeah, you want to make sure that you start using these cards. I know that sounds stupid. Obviously, you want to use your cards, but one thing that Warlock does later on is it gets cluttered. And there's no point having an 8-card advantage if you're not using them. With one giant down, the hand size issues are less fun for you.
So many possibilities.
A lot of discussion is being had, and the thing is, even though Sweden, they're taking their time here, what's Kenobi saying? Nothing. Well, okay,
Yeah, he's saying Boston, Orange.
Yeah, help me.
Which one of you's right? Apparently Boston and Orange do disagree quite a lot.
Really?
Yeah, which is fine. It's actually good because you're getting 2 viewpoints, but you've got to learn to sort it out quickly.
Now the Hellfire is going to be used, as I was looking at last turn, just to stop this egg from being able to be popped. But it does leave a 5/5 on the board. Oh, and hello, there's your boy Rexar. If anyone can carry you through a game, it is Rexar.
Yep.
It does mean you sacrifice your hero power, and yes, okay, that extra 2 damage might help turn after turn. But realistically, you know, there are Spellstones that are available, there are Shroom Brewers that are available, there are ways that actually the Warlock can out-heal themselves, so that face plan really isn't going to work.
Just in case of when he plays it, I think Boar's considering, shall we just drop the Mossy Horror now, because board presence in this match, as we've discussed, is so important that, you know, the Mossy Horror is quite it's not a force, but it's it chills on the board and gets in the way and is threatened. Because otherwise he never plays this card for the rest of the game.
It has a presence.
Yeah. It's a tough choice.
It's a shame that there wasn't that 1 extra damage available on the Drake, because if the Deathstalker Rexar cleared off this board, I think it would be a much easier turn to go about. But I think this is right. Get the build a beast online.
And hit the Drake, force it to trade in, because you do have that second candle shot next turn. The other issue getting Build a Beast online now is you don't get to play those beasts until turn 8, most likely, unless you're picking some piddly little things that aren't very good.
Yeah, but maybe those piddly little things with charge might be able to just push in a little bit extra damage here or there, because Sweden haven't found those hooked Reavers. Even though we spoke about playing around, getting your opponent down too low, there isn't that option for them to put one on the board at the moment. Also notice there's a Bone Mare in the list of this even lock. Typically not that common in even lock. It's the more greedier version, I'd say. When you are feeling like a meta is going to be quite slow, you can opt for things like it.
And we are seeing that actually in the HGG meta, that more and more decks are getting just more and more greedy. We're seeing Tyrantus and a lot of the Druids. All of these things are perfectly well known for ladder, but on ladder you've got to be a bit careful, because if you run into a lot more aggro decks.
Ooh. Now naturally you want to build a beast, but
you've just drawn a beast.
You've just drawn a pretty large beast as well, a beast that's buffed up by Keleseth. I mean, Highmane has been such an important card in Hunter for however long. It doesn't really matter.
Since it was made.
Exactly. It doesn't matter what you're playing, what variant of Hunter, it always turns up.
It's just regardless, the legendary you can play 2 of. That's how people describe
crazy.
it to new players.
When you look at this deck, and I look at King Crush being involved, which we saw discarded earlier, and I think, do we need Highmanes? And I think this is the answer of why, yes, you do need Highmanes in this deck. You need to have that little bit of refuel potential in these particular games where you are having that constant battle for the mid-game board.
And if you play the Highmane, what are you hitting with a Candle Shot? Because it's got 7 attack, because it's been buffed. Putting 1 damage into the Twilight Drake allows you to kill that over 2 turns with the Highmane if certain things happen. But also, if you don't play it this turn, you get to build a beast, and next turn you can play Highmane and another beast. Italy taking a lead over Malaysia 1-0, sneaking up there. And yeah, he is actually going to threaten this Twilight Drake, saying, okay, bump into my lion, I'm going to bump into you.
That was Hungary as well, sorry.
Sorry, just my flags are sideways
They're very
today.
similar. Falcone's rubbing off on you, I know. He gets his Italy.
I just say Italy all the time now, give him maximum chance.
It just... Someday we'll see Italy get to the finals and Falcone will finally be happy.
Your magic shall not save you.
I knew I was going to get something wrong like that today, because I've spent the whole day laughing at everybody else's flag abilities.
You said it and I was like, oh god.
It's coming, he's going to do it.
Thankfully, the Spellbreaker is allowing a nice clear onto the Highmane here, and I think this is probably the Builder Beast turn for the United Kingdom. Ball Control would have definitely hoped Highmane could have survived now. Alternative is you can use tracking and you can search for something a little bit more impactful. And then if that whiffs, then you can play the Builder Beast, but all the time you're doing so, you are using more and more mana, and then the beast that you build has to be less influential. All these different factors that have to be discussed between the United Kingdom.
Yeah, and Boers, at the same time as they're discussing it, he's also trying to rack his brains to work out what he can get.
Both players rubbing their chin, by the way.
Thinking.
Kenobi does have facial hair. Ball Control one day will grow some.
Do you think?
Yeah, he's only a young lad.
Okay.
It took me at least 27 years to get one. Just one hair.
Okay, you've never shaved. That's the sum total of your...
Exactly. I've probably got about 15 razors at home just from Christmas presents that I never had to use.
I'm at the stage where I'm just happy that I've got any hair.
I'm happy for you, Neil. Thank you. Ball Control does manage to maneuver the Builder Beast around so that he could find something for 5 mana, which allowed him to use the tracking as well. And it's just going to have to trade off here. Doesn't want to allow Sweden to get too far ahead on the board as Lich King is found. That's a pretty nice 8-drop to come off the top when you have 8 mana.
Is it as good as Bone Mare, though? I think you're right. I think it's decent. But Bone Mare is also a huge board swing right now. This Hunter's Mark is a thing. It's a Hunter's Mark. That's what.
I feel like I prefer Lich King. If you are concerned that you are not going to have a minion on the board next turn, then maybe you just play Bone Mare. You take advantage of the fact that, yes, okay, I have a relatively large minion that is difficult to clear. It's going to be even larger and even more difficult to clear, and is going to require some sort of beast with charge and poison, for example, to have to deal with. And then I can play Lich King.
So now he's obviously going to play Lich King because he's attacked face, so no buffs. And good job for the United Kingdom that they took the Hunter's Mark last turn.
Anti-Magic Shell is so good as well in any matchup, and unfortunately because King Crush was thrown away earlier, that is just going to leave the Highmane, and I think there's only one Witchwood Grizzly in the United Kingdom's list as well. Sometimes you will see, most of the time you see 2, but the UK are only running 1 of them.
But this is just a formidable board. They have fought for this board the entire game, and this has been the gameplay. You can see at any time had he not been right on it from the start, going for this board, they would have just been dying to... There'd have been a giant in their face at some point, and this health total would be low already. And it's probably just... They've stopped the snowball from happening.
Yeah, some of these draws have just been absolutely massive for the United Kingdom. I mean, finding that high main was able to at least put something on the board and make it difficult for Sweden, and Katharina here, you can see what damage that's done to this board.
But they're allowed to draw good things. They're down to 11 cards in their decks.
This
so
is true.
When you've drawn some of your early stuff and nothing exciting's happened, you're entitled to get into that good stuff. I mean, they've still got play deads and cubes to come.
Yeah, they've used one play dead for sure, and there's definitely 2 cubes left. I don't remember seeing any cubes getting thrown away from tracking.
Yeah, and Sweden here on the defensive, trying to
Your magic shall not
stop
save
everything they can, because the next couple of turns look terrifying.
They will use that anti-magic shell, which is such a good spell.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts.
Terrascale Stalker. You build a beast first, of course. Mukla's probably useless at this point. Kodo isn't going to do anything either, so maybe it's the dual Macaw here.
Macaw also has the advantage of being 1 mana, so it works well with the Terrascale. Terrascale. It's like toasted bread, is probably pretty stale by now.
I wonder what he did with all that bread. Do you reckon he ate any of it?
Well, after being in a bath with it.
Yeah, I also complained, I said I would have rather he buttered it and then put it in the bath.
Okay.
I don't know, I just...
That'd have been grim.
Yeah, it definitely would have been grim, but it would have been more entertaining for everyone else.
But he won anyway. You only got to do the minimum to win. You only got to do 30 damage.
This is true. Doesn't matter if you win by a crust or a loaf.
Yep.
As long as you get there in the end. As Boar is just contemplating of what he needs here. Stegodon, of course, will provide a little bit of protection for the high main that is on the board. Giant Wasp could be picked, but he is
Oh, they did take the Mukla.
He's going big. They are making some big boys. And obviously, the bananas can't be targeted onto the minions because it's anti-magic shell, so that's a really good analyzation of what's on the board for the United Kingdom.
Not saying anything.
Yep, that's a new word for you as well.
He looked at me straight away as soon as he said analysation.
As I said it. I wanted to see if you picked me up on it.
I'm not going to pick you up on anything.
Just pick me up.
I've made my mistake with the flags for the day. I'm picking everybody up, and now that's it.
Yeah,
I've got no bargaining power for the rest of the tournament.
Probably, I would have let it fly, but because you picked me up on mine earlier, I thought I'd just let you know. Meanwhile, this is a very scary board from the United Kingdom, and Kenobi needs to find one way to deal with it.
Yeah, and this Terrascale, like you were saying, is pretty horrendous for Sweden too. They are going to have to deal with it with a Hellfire. This means they're not going to get to develop much this turn. But you can see how hard both teams are fighting for this board.
They are.
It's definitely a good way to play this matchup.
Going back up to 8. You feel relatively comfortable, especially because you have a taunt in the way. Ooh.
Had a taunt in the way.
Had a taunt in the way. Hunter's Mark is going to allow to deal with that. Mossy Horror, of course, could deal with it as well, but it's all going to depend on what is built here.
A pretty grim set of cards.
Yeah.
You don't like this?
Nope.
Jackie's in the background shouting, Dragonhawk, Dragonhawk! Because he submitted a Dragonhawk deck for Seat Story for his top 8 list, which we never got to see.
Yeah, there's a reason why.
Yeah, because he submitted the same sort of thing for the other 3 decks, 4 decks.
Stegodon seems like the most obvious pick, but Ball Control is going to be contemplating what is the most obvious pick for mana and how it's going to work out with this turn as well. Is he using the Hunter's Mark, for example, to trade off against the Homunculus?
Yeah, they don't want to play their Terrascale if they can help it. It's got so much synergy with the upcoming cubes and also upcoming Builder Beasts. But they're not going to have much board presence this turn. Boar looks concerned. Okay, 4/6 Beetle. And just going to get a little bit here out of it, because why not? 4 attack minions on this board, obviously really good. So can't afford to mess around with the Terrascale going for long-term value, because if you lose the board, you're going to get hit in the face with all sorts of nasties.
And we are going to see this Bone Mare get some value soon as well. And
yes.
It's not typically something you'd be playing around against an even lock. But the United Kingdom, because it's open deck list, they will know full well that it could potentially come onto the board, which it's going to now. But at least there is a Hunter's Mark to be able to deal with the outcoming minion.
if they can get to it. Of course, Banana Joe is going to kill off your Terror Scale, and he's going to remain in the way of this 8-8.
Still not seeing any cube, by the way.
Yeah, they're not getting... they're just not where they want to be at the moment. They've lost the board.
Poisonous and Rush is always really good. Actually, the Basilisk is a decent pick as well. Makes it very difficult, but...
They do have the health total to try and survive an extra turn of beating. They can make 2-turn board plays, but just getting a bit awkward for them now.
But at the same time, Sweden are running out of resources.
I feel the UK have been taking some expensive beasts. So it's nice to take the cheap ones, try and play two things at once.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're just going for big, monstrous things.
It does seem to be the game plan for the United Kingdom of going as large as possible, as Dread Infernal is a really nice card for Kenobi. Gets rid of that Divine Shield nice and comfortably.
Yeah, and then you're just left with a 9-9.
Which can be cleared up with the Spellstone and a minion. And you're dealing extra damage, because of course the Bittertide Hydra makes you take damage when you take any. The UK just need to find something that's going to... This is the problem. The UK were hoping they find something that sticks, and then they eventually draw into a cube.
Yeah. Yeah, something with Death Rattle would be nice as well. Not now, but it would have been over the last... Yeah, a real Death Rattle. I know they found a beetle, well done, but... Now they're dead in 2 turns.
Hunter's Mark will at least allow them to clear off this 8-3.
So anything they can discover? Not really. Not this turn, at least. Next turn they can discover a cube.
Mossy Horror's not going to be helping. You're building a beast, you're looking for more options. But the thing is, if you can get past this phase, there is still a chance.
The Grizzly should stick, and it's not going to be a small one. 9 health Grizzly.
And you've seen a lot of removal tools as well from the Warlock. Both Spellstones are gone. Hellfire's gone.
You know that the Reavers are coming soon, though.
This is
bad for you. I think it is time to build a piddly beast that I was talking about earlier. Slam down the Grizzly, kill off the Mushroom dude.
Arthas, even though Arthas is a pretty bad pick, sometimes it can get you something out of the Death Rattle that can actually get you back into a game. It's kind of a last-ditch attempt, and I don't know if Ball Control did choose it there. He did. Yep. And it works out nicely in terms of mana next turn as well.
Yeah, the Penguin's always nice when you've got a decent first pick. And yeah, get a couple of random Death Knight cards, and you're in a good spot sometimes. Can they just survive 1 or 2 more turns without this getting out of control? Of course, Sweden do have probably an even better hero power than the United Kingdom at this point.
An even better one.
Yeah.
And I think you can use it as well. You do have the room to tap and search for something a little bit more influential. Because their hand is a bit dire at the moment. I mean, Greymane is just a very average card, does what it does. Outside of that...
Is that how cards work?
Yeah, it is. I mean, well, Greymane is just boring outside of what it does at the start of the game, right?
Yeah. Vanilla.
So many possibilities.
But if you are tapping, you are then putting yourself at that risk. Your life total is something you need to be thinking about here.
It's messy all around. It's all messy.
It does seem like Sweden are a little bit concerned about their life total just by this defensive play.
Very difficult for the UK to get through this, though, and it is setting up lethal. Well... Mossy Horror doesn't really do enough.
Yeah, it keeps them alive on board.
Now they've drawn the Terror Scale, so they don't even need to find it with a tracker, but sure. It was always coming, because there's 6 cards left, and most of them are cubes.
So there's always the option of finding Charge and Poisonous.
Bloatbat's always your get out of jail card.
That is your last ditch attempt. You've got Zombiest into Terrascale, but that's not going to help you because the mana doesn't fit in well.
Yeah, I go digging for Bloatbats here. So if you miss, you lose.
What's left Stitch Tracker-wise?
If you're going to build a beast, you've got to do it soon.
Yeah, you need to give time for yourself to think if the beast goes wrong as well.
Imagine a zombies going wrong. That'd be even more terrifying than the zombies we have. Well, no time for the beast now.
Well, there is. It's just going to be Mossy Horror, and it is hoping that there is not one single point of damage.
And at the moment, there isn't.
Now there is. That's a Dread Infernal.
You saw that really quickly. Where were you looking?
Like a hawk.
People have been doing this to me for like 2 or 3 tournaments now. I'm not quite sure. It's like I'm missing where the cards come from or something.
And quite an elongated game in the end. Unfortunately, the Beast's not able to get the United Kingdom to a 3-0 victory. Sweden bring one back in a match that we did say from the start, or you did say from the start, that is somewhat slightly favoured for the even lock, but there was that chance for the Death Rattle Hunter. But unfortunately, we didn't see any kind of Death Rattle Hunter shenanigans. We didn't see a cube onto a shore and then a play dead or anything like that. We saw no cubes whatsoever. So maybe a little bit of frustration for the United Kingdom team.
Talking of frustration, the next match, Priests and Mages are going to be going at it.
So that will be the Control Priest on the side of the United Kingdom and the Control Mage, or the Big Mage, on the side of Sweden. Now, I know last week, the United Kingdom, they brought a Combo Priest rather than the Control Priest, which was quite bizarre, considering Control Priest was the most brought deck, I think, across the whole of the global games, and it continues to be up there as well. 45 teams have brought Control Priest.
And there's only 48 teams left. Well, there's only 47 teams now, but one of them had to play this week. They're out. But
there's a lot of people that are agreeing that Control Priest is just the best priest, and I would agree, in this meta it is. Unless you are single-handedly targeting something in a more typical Conquest format, for example, then maybe we might see different iterations of
the Combo Priest is pretty good.
It is.
But there's just all the cards that are out there to just deal with it, like polymorphs and saps and.
And the reason that I think Toast Monster said in his interview that they brought Combo Priest was because they wanted to go for something a little bit different, and they said, and we think our Priest is going to get banned anyway, but we want to have the chance that if it's not banned...
we're going to let Jackie bring his fun decks to the tournament on the condition they get banned. Because we don't actually want to play those
It's
decks.
a good approach. It's one way to tame the beast, that is Jackie Chan.
Tame Jackie. I mean, if they're getting banned, they're doing their job at the end of the day, so that's fine as well.
It's a shame. At the same time, I'm happy that Jackie isn't being given free roam to bring his weird and wacky, wonderful, lovely livelihood, because if he has stopped doing it now, as soon as Boomsday comes out, suddenly the explosive Jackie Chan gets his chance to demonstrate all of his fantastic creations that I'm sure he will be coming out with.
Fantastic creations, is that what you call them?
I'd say they're pretty fantastic.
That's the only fit for broadcast words I can think of to describe what I think of them.
So with this Priest versus Mage game, then, what's your personal opinions of Priest versus Mage? Is there a preference that you have that you would rather be playing, who you think's favoured, for example?
It's Control Mage, so it's tedious for both teams, but it's interesting. It's intricate. Tedious is bad.
I mean, similar towards the end of that game, though. It's just those very minor decisions that you have to make of, am I building a beast? How impactful is my beast going to be? Now you're going to be looking at, am I going to be drawing into my impactful cards later on? Dragoncaller Alana, is she going to show up at some point, for example? Is that even in the list on the side of Sweden? That's something that we have to look at, as we had a quick glimpse at Toast Monster there, who you would have seen on the community show yesterday, as Neil is still trying to find out for me. Is it there?
I was looking for something completely different. What were you talking about?
I gave you the chance. I gave you so much time to find Dragoncaller Alana
that's
for
definitely
me.
There.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, Dragoncaller Alana is there. As there's just a quick reminder, if you have just joined us, on what the score is. It is currently 2-1 to the United Kingdom, and we're going into Priest versus Mage, and potentially Druid versus Shaman, if we do need it.
So the Mage has to be very careful with its health total. It's going to get an Alex Straza in the face at some point, which means it has to look after its Artificers, it has to look after its own healing with Jaina, of course, which is always kind of the key card every time you play this deck, which is why it gets scorned upon so much. Because if you draw Jaina, you win. If you don't, you don't, and that's kind of the best way to describe any matchup with this deck, and that makes it... It's almost exactly 50-50 to have Jaina by turn 9 if you full mulligan for it, which again, people hate the sort of alleged coin flippiness. But yeah, try to save your health gain if you can until after you get an Alex Strazard. Try and have the board. And then there's so much the priest can do as well to run you out of time and cards. Just keep all its removal for the Alana that I think you were talking about earlier.
I think I was. I'm not sure. I did ask you to look for it, and then I thought you were looking for it, and I was covering for you, and then you completely bailed on me. So glad that our first cast of the week, you're already throwing me under the bus several times, Neil.
One down, lots to go.
The priest is called Mind Blast Priest for a reason. A lot of people call it Mind Blast Priest because Mind Blast is in the deck, and you can gain about 4 of them, as it were, and you can just deal so much damage at once. Do you think that that is definitely a potential game plan for the priest, is to try and find as much Mind Blast as possible and bursting down that mage before they have that armor gain?
And one of the things that can go wrong for the priest is they just draw their Mind Blast before their Shadow Visions, and then it's like, oh. But if you do it too early and you go for the Shadow Visions early on, there's more than 3 spells in the deck, so you might not get offered the Mind Blast. So you see this game of chicken where you don't want to use your Shadow Visions too early, but you probably should. And also you've got to find the time. Well, the mage gives you the time to do that, usually.
Usually being the key word. Also quite surprised to see Control Mage being brought from Sweden. We have 34 Tempo Mages or Aggro Mages that have been brought this week, which is a pretty high amount. Actually up 7 from last week. There were only 27 Aggro Mages. So it's been less favoured this week, the Control Mage. But Sweden are sticking with it. And maybe they'll be rewarded here against the Priest. And that will put themselves in a 2-2 scenario going into a Druid versus Shaman matchup that maybe they'll be feeling comfortable about.
United Kingdom already got decisions to make, like, what board presence do we want? How many cards do we want to draw? Of course, fatigue's not an issue, but it can be later, so you want to get set up? Do you want to take your time? A lot to discuss, and they want to get set up. They're in a hurry.
Yeah, I don't think you want to allow the mage to have any time to be even drawing into the Death Knight and just getting that sheer amount of armor gain, the sheer amount of life steal. Because if you can get ahead, if you can build a pretty formidable board early on, then suddenly the mage is constantly on the back foot, they're trying to use all their removal, and then you're able to burst them down later on with Alex Strazard plus Mind Blast shenanigans. It's also pretty good if you can get Shadow Reaper Anduin out nice and early as well for the Priest and for United Kingdom, because if they can, that extra 2 damage every turn is going to be extremely helpful.
Yeah, I mean, the mage has no burst at all, so if you just sit there pinging them away, if they can't heal, they can't race you with bursting down. Alana's interesting, but that's all. Sweden here are still discussing how they want to go out playing the game. Obviously, there's not much else to worry about for them right now. But they do have to think next time what they want to do with this Stonehill defender. Of course, they don't want to give the United Kingdom, too many cards.
And it's how much the United Kingdom want to commit to this board as well, because you are very aware of the board clears there are available for the mage. For example, we can see Dragon's Fury on turn 5, and realistically, there isn't going to be that many options for the United Kingdom to put a scary enough board before that turn 5.
Yeah, Sweden would just take the 2 a turn and Dragon's Fury, and United Kingdom know that, and so they're just going to sit here with this cleric waiting for a chance to heal. I don't know when she's going to get it. Sweden probably just not under any hurry. One thing they will be in a hurry about is nothing to do with their damage, but their hand size. This hand size does get a bit cluttery with the mage, because there's things you want to save, as importantly, a Mind Blast is drawn.
And we can see off stream there as well, Hungary and Malaysia, they tie it up 1-1.
Excellent.
Which I believe is another do or die game as well. Whoever loses that will go home and be eliminated from the global games.
Hungary was Production's pick, of course.
As well as Poland.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they got 2 picks. They felt left out because we only gave them 1 pick.
I think that's fair.
We thought they'd just want to be Poland.
Everyone has to be included. But still now, for Sweden, they don't want to put anything on the board. They don't want to allow any potential draw for the United Kingdom. You could play the Witchwood Piper.
It might come to the point where they don't mind too much because United Kingdom's hand is also filling up.
I think this is fine.
But this is fine, yeah.
It trades in comfortably.
Death Knight for the United Kingdom. So they're ahead in Death Knights. They're behind on the fact they've drawn a Mind Blast. But with Alexstrasza, Mind Blast and Shadow Reaper in hand, maybe they just get it done really quickly.
You could Twilight Acolyte, coin, trade, heal yourself up to guarantee a draw. But it's a lot of resources just for one draw.
I feel like the coin's the sticking point there, personally. But maybe just the Acolyte and slow the Mage down. Or maybe just don't care. They've got so much good stuff.
I think the Acolyte's fine here, even if you're not coining out and doing that kind of shenanigans, but I think just taking away the potential for Sweden to be able to trade comfortably into this Northshire Cleric is very important.
Yep. And of course the Acolyte is now just pretty tasty. 3/4 is nice. If you can stick 5 attack of damage on the board going into that Alexstrasza ping and take your opponents down to 10 instead of 15, then you have set up double Mind Blast closer.
So naturally I'm looking at Stonehill Defender as well as a ping, killing off this Northshire Cleric.
That does seem good. The whole thing just is nicely synergetic.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to look at anything else. Arcane Keysmith just doesn't really fit your mana curve anyway. Also allows the potential to your opponent to be drawing, so I think the ping is the most important factor of this play.
Abomination, Lord of the Arena, and Ascension Shield Master. Basically a bunch of gubbins.
Bunch of gubbins indeed. Maybe the 2 damage might be important from the Abomination at some point, but Ascension Shield Master does just make sense. It's the most neutral vanilla minion that also does a job.
Ascension is actually played when you've got very small collections. Sort of actual rank 20 players who don't play much, casual play, it's actually an okay card.
Yeah, I'll ask Darok later. Zinger! It's fun because I can take the mick out of him while he's not here because he's actually very, very good at the game and much better than me.
But now you've got me here.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. On all counts. All right, Toast getting the cards that he feels he's entitled to. And this battle for board is it's just, as Darok just decided he is here.
Darok poked his head around the corner and I feared for everything that was my body.
But yeah, Toast is battling for this is like the world's scrappiest battle for board. It's like, yeah, we're winning, we've got a 3-4, look at us go.
Well, and this is how this matchup plays throughout the first 5 turns. It is very slow, it's very methodical of where is this extra 1 damage going to be going? Where are we going to be able to find that little bit of healing, that extra card draw, for example? And it can be frustrating if you are a ladder player, for example, when you're in one of these games and your opponent is taking that time to think about those plays, whereas you can completely understand why a team would be thinking about these plays, like overthinking, some might say.
Something that's interesting about the newly revealed Mage card, the 6-mana 3/3 that shoots some missiles, is I don't think at first glance it's a particularly good card, but Mage doesn't develop minions on turns 5, 6, 7 at the moment in control, and actually just plonking down a 3/3 and shooting a bunch of missiles, because that's what this deck would do. It's hand size related. It'd be 7 or 8 if this was now. Might just be worth a look in terms of control, just so you can get some board presence in the deck.
I mean, it's going to certainly be an exciting time with Boomsday Project being released very soon. Of course, this is the last week in this current meta, which is also why it is a very important week as well. Finding a victory when you are comfortable with a meta is so important. If you can go into the unknown as a 2-1 rather than a 1-2, for example, you're going to be feeling more entitled to have a little bit of exploration about your decks.
And I think also if you're one of the smaller nations, these are the weeks you've got to get your wins. Yeah. Because teams like Sweden in particular are just going to be so far ahead of the game when we return for week 4 that some of the smaller teams are going to struggle to have the meta output required.
Absolutely, because some players, well, most Hearthstone players are good at Hearthstone. You know how to play the game, you know what cards you should be playing, you follow the meta trends. But what really separates the good players from the amazing players is the deck builders. The people that can really analyze a meta, early on and create a deck that can just absolutely trump everyone else.
Yeah, and it's all right saying, oh, you could copy that deck, net deck it. Yeah, but the person who built it knows it already. They've been playing it for a week before you net deck it. Sure, you can catch them up, but they've built it, they're clever, they're ahead of you, and you're playing catch up with cards that you don't 100% have a feel for all the synergies of. So those guys just get ahead for the first 3 or 4 weeks.
So even though that Toast Monster does have a Shadow Reaper Anduin available, Alex Straza's there, Mind Blast, Holy Fire, a lot of damage. He'll be well aware of the potential healing, well, or armor gain that is potentially available as well for Sweden. We can see Arcane Artificer is there, well, both of them are now, plus some very large spells. So you need to be able to set up a 2-turn lethal where you are comfortable that even if there is a little bit of armor gain, you can still find that extra little bit of damage, which is a difficult position to be in.
Yeah, and it's easy to forget how they got to this position, which is by looking after those spells, looking after those artificers. They've been challenging the board with their minions for the whole game, which has allowed this Dragon's Fury, this Blizzard, etc. to just hang around. A bit like Darek does.
Like a bad smell. Lingers.
He's only been here a day and we're picking on him already.
It's just good because usually I cast with him and I can't pick on him then because he's bigger than me.
Yeah.
I pick my battles wisely, you see.
He's bigger than everybody. United Kingdom obviously now starting to think about getting lethal in the near future. See if they can manipulate the situation. How many... Can we beat 2 artificers? Can we beat 1? Can we beat 0? And then work out the odds of those things, and then walk into 2 of them.
That's how I approach most Hearthstone games. I hope I can get lethal in the near future.
Really?
Yeah, if I can. I'm in a happy place, I think, if I feel that way.
Yeah, I don't. I just play the slowest decks, slowly, and hope I get lethal eventually.
Eventually is also another keyword. There was the option that turns a coin out Shadow Reaper Anduin if you really wanted to pop him early. But United Kingdom were just wanting to contest this Sen'jin Shieldmaster, which evidently was picked up from the Stonehill earlier when we were saying there was just a whole load of nothing, but this 3-5 has actually been a little bit awkward for the United Kingdom.
Anduin also, not only does it work better with a coin because it's 2 more damage, but it contests Alana so well.
Yes.
You play Alana? No, you don't. See ya.
But can you afford to wait that long, do you think? Because if you're just waiting for Alana to come out and you're not playing Shadow Reaper Anduin, then realistically, can you win the game with the potential burst damage?
If you Alex Straza them and they don't have more than, say, 1 Artificer and a spell, then sure. As it is, we can see that maybe double Artificer is going to require a plan B. Oh, here comes one of them. So now they've got to chip away at this armor before playing Alex Straza.
But I feel like having Psychic Scream in hand for the United Kingdom probably allows you to have a little bit more room to use Shadow Reaper Anduin for a more aggressive approach. Just throw all those dragons back in the deck. And Sweden will be well aware of that as well, and they will try and encourage a Psychic Scream a little bit earlier.
Primordial Drake seems decent here. It sort of deals... The only thing you need to deal with is the Artificer this turn. And the rest of it is how you want to go about life. And putting a 4-8 down in the process just seems tidy. I'm with you on the Anduin, by the way. I think that you can definitely consider dropping it early. But you do have to be alert to the fact that Alana's a mess. But like you say, Psychic Scream's pretty good. As long as you feel you can deal with a 1/5/5 a turn, you probably can.
Yeah. You'd like to think you would have minions on the board that can actually deal with them, but...
Not a whole lot going on here. Frozen Clone could give you 2 Alex Strazas. That'd be quite amusing.
Amusing, but is it helpful? You're trying to find as much help as you can now at this point with these secrets. Explosive Runes, I don't think is going to be that impactful. Yeah, okay, might be able to clear up something small that is put on the board from the United.
Mana Bind might be fun, because they might test it with Shadow Visions because they think it's counterspell, and now you've got 2 Shadow Visions as Mage.
It might be fun, but is it helpful, Neil?
Did we just do this?
Yes.
I think it might be helpful to have 2 Shadow Visions in your hand, yes.
Sorry,
yeah, one for 0 or 2 with Frozen Clone. Either is helpful, yes. And it's fun.
I didn't even see what was selected.
I never do, unfortunately.
You can actually see. Going to use this Voodoo Doll just to take off this 4-8. The reason being because Sweden, they want to keep as much board presence as possible just to make it more awkward for the next few turns for the United Kingdom.
Dustbreaker seems good here, obviously, because it clears the board, but more importantly, because it doesn't have much of a role in the matchup unless you save double Dustbreaker for the Alana. That's the other option you've got here.
Also, the Shadow Visions is in hand as well for Toast Monster, and you want to be using your Shadow Visions when you have a very clear game plan of how you want to approach the rest of this game. Am I looking for Mind Blast? Am I looking for a Psychic Scream? If he plays the Dustbreaker, he does have that chance to use a Shadow Visions early, but it's going to be the aggressive approach from the UK boys.
It is the Frozen clone.
I think that's okay.
But is it helpful?
But you know what? I don't think it is that helpful.
No, I don't.
I don't know whether this Alexstrasza is going to come in handy. Maybe Sweden could respond with an Alexstrasza of their own, but then you are leaving 8 damage on the board for the United Kingdom.
Yeah, and you have no burst. We've gone on about this for Sweden, but the Alexstrasza, yeah, this is why it isn't in the main deck. Yeah, you put them to 15, great, then what? Oh, nothing. That's what.
And I don't think, realistically, Sweden are going to have a chance to ever use Alexstrasza as a defensive option.
Yep.
I would imagine that United Kingdom won't ever put the Mage down to 3 health, for example. They are going to kill them in one turn at some point.
Seems likely, or at least 2 big chunks at the worst.
Yeah, you save back your Mind Blast for when you actually have lethal, rather than allowing the Mage to have the opportunity to heal back up with armor, or now an Alexstrasza.
So keeping back the Polymorph, which was the most obvious looking play, because when you do get Jaina, Polymorph is just a free water elemental at any time you want it.
Speaking of Jaina, where is she? I think the Swedish team would happily see Jaina come into play a little bit sooner rather than later. Dustbreaker, unfortunately, can't be used because Alexstrasza has now come out of the hand for the United Kingdom, so they can't clear up this board as comfortably as they would have been able to. And you want to get that Arcane Artificer off of the board.
And now the Anduin's one of the ways of doing that, but again, you are scared of Dragoncaller Alana. You're not terrified of her. You're kind of a bit... You're not happy, though.
You'd walk away. If you saw her in an alleyway, you'd say, nah, don't fancy it. I'm going to go the other way.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. Heard about the dragons.
Yeah, pretty scary. But I think a Psychic Scream is a great answer.
I mean, with Sweden on 28 health as well, you've got to start actually doing some damage with the Anduin. Psychic Scream's a great answer for now, as long as you can kill Alana herself, which you can because you've still got this coin that you've held onto forever. And you're not dying anytime soon if you're the United Kingdom.
What to do? What to do?
And I'm just kind of I'm looking at what's available for both hands, and if Jaina doesn't turn up soon, I think eventually the United Kingdom are just going to be able to kind of batter down the Mage here.
What's the downside of just Sweden just playing Alexstrasza right now, just for a big minion that happens to do a bit of damage?
This is definitely the opportunity to, and maybe it baits out that Psychic Scream that we keep saying is...
And you play the other one that they know you've got, though.
But and then you play Dragoncaller Alana, and you say, how are you answering this 8-8, then another 8-8, then this wealth of dragons that's going to be on the board?
Yeah. And I think that's the play. And they think it is too.
It's very strange to be in a position as the Mage where you suddenly are the aggressor, but you have to take this opportunity when it is gifted to you.
And they've used all their steely things, so no stealing of the Alexstrasza. And you really don't want to be putting Holy Fires at this. That's one of your kill cards as the priest. And you see Toast he's much less nervous looking than last week, but he's definitely not enjoying the situation.
Speaks to me.
So the Shadow Vision still is in hand, and the reason why I still feel like that's important is because I touched upon it very quickly where I said you want to have the ability to know your game plan with the Shadow Visions. If they use this Psychic Scream here to deal with this board, which is one of the best ways to deal with this current board, at least they have a Shadow Visions to look for another Psychic Scream later if suddenly Dragoncaller Alana comes on the board, for example. And yes, okay, it's not the Mind Blast plan that you wanted, but at least it does keep you alive.
Shadow Visions into Shadow Visions, yeah? Repeatedly.
Just forever.
It's a thing that you can get into, but then when you try and go that plan, you just end up drawing it. Every time. That's just how it always ends up. You've got to do something, Toast. Okay, well, we know what's happening then.
And there's Psychic Scream number 2. So then that makes that Shadow Visions actually You've got that plan now.
Yeah.
Is just to find the Mind Blast, but you need to play it sooner rather than later before you do draw Mind Blast number 2.
If they do get some breathing space, which they might in about 4 turns' time, they might go for the Shadow Visions into Shadow Visions plan. That's actually not just me being comical.
Because you'd never do that.
What, be comical?
Yeah, you'd never
Just
try
because
it.
you don't understand humour.
I don't understand humour from the 1940s. You are correct.
A lot of people didn't. So Sweden have got the option of dropping the second Alexstrasza here, given that it won't be a punishment. They're not going to heal their opponent's bad up.
Sindragosa also does a pretty similar... has a pretty similar impact to this board as well. You do want to save back Sindragosa for when you have Jaina available, because of course that is another 1 mana, a 1 health minion that you can ping off as well.
Time runs out on me.
I don't think you need... Well, they do. I was going to say, I don't think you need another Legendary right now. Your hand is strong enough. But they disagree. They're looking for a game breaker. Oh, my goodness.
Well, if that is a
Let's
game
get
breaker...
settled down, kids.
That's something that can break a game, for sure. Well, there's no fatigue option.
At least it's not Quest Priest, because then this would get insanely silly.
I'd be ordering coffee.
Yeah.
There's that Mind Blast being found as well, and I was saying that's the downside of not being able to play the Shadow Visions, but if you're not being comical, Neil, with the Mind Blast being drawn, there is the chance for the Shadow Visions into Shadow Visions, or at least there would be if they haven't played the first one already.
Ah. That's a good point.
Which I'm trying to think back to.
Shadowy thoughts.
Sometimes I wish I would write these things down.
Sometimes I do write them down and then I can't read the writing. And sometimes I write them down and I can read the writing. And today...
You forgot your glasses, so...
I didn't forget them.
What did you do with them?
I left them on the plane.
That is forgetting them.
Shadows grow
I mean, I remembered them later. It's not like I neglected them forever.
Are they
just
just
never
gonna... Well, they are just going to say, alright, we will allow you to push this 8 damage to face, put you down to 17, because we've got that damage next turn.
And they do.
2-1 to Hungary against Malaysia. Again, very important game off stream. Shame that it is off stream, if I am honest. It would have been nice to see one of those elimination games.
I think we will be seeing those obviously in future days and future weeks, but
Well, of course, there's going to be a lot of teams that need to be eliminated.
got to eliminate 47 teams before we have a winner.
That's true.
They're going to start going sometime.
Croatia were the first team to drop earlier on today,
Yeah.
being taken down by Japan 3-2. And it is a very different format to last year, of course.
It is a much better format this year, I think. The second stage last year, I think, was a little bit... people didn't enjoy it very much. But this year, the second stage is straight into a second group stage where you can just double a limb and lose.
So Dragon Caller Alana comes down. Sweden were trying to say, do we need to heal up? Is there any way we can heal up? There was no way they could heal up. And now Toast, he's going to be having a little count and saying, is there a way that we can push this damage? They've got 2 Mind Blasts available, which is naturally 10. That's 14 available also with the hero power as well. You're not quite there.
It's 16.
Yep.
And a coin doesn't give you 2 mana. Only they had an Innovate.
But you do have Ping into Psychic Scream this turn, which then puts yourself into the range of just an OTK next turn.
Yeah.
You've seen both Arcane Artificers now as the United Kingdom, so you are feeling in a relatively comfortable spot. Alexstrasza's not going to do anything.
Shadowy thoughts.
Here we go.
And how does Sweden possibly survive here? What is there that's available that can actually heal them up? Jaina is the right answer, Lorenda.
Thank you. What do I win?
You get a golden star.
Yay! Okay.
But it's going to be hard to draw Jaina when you've just had a bunch of dragons thrown into your deck as well.
Discussing whether to coin Ping here, or whether it makes any difference either way. This is 2 damage more done going into the turn after the next one if Jaina is drawn.
And Coin Ping was the right option there as well, making use of that coin. Frozen Champion, though, can be pinged away and potentially find you a legendary that heals.
Healy Legend Man.
Healy Legend Man, who costs 7.
got to exist. There's got to be Healy Ledging Men.
And that's going to be the discussion that Sweden are going to be having right now. You see the raised eyebrows and the grimace of look on Sweden.
There's Death Knights that can heal you for 7, surely. Like Malfurion or something. Or is it minions? It's only minions, right?
I nodded, by the way, just in case.
So yeah, this is how Gaskin communicates off camera by speaking with his hands.
The Black Knight does not heal you, and now Sweden... Palm runs across the head of Arcade as he says, well, now we just hope and we pray. As Toast Monster is kind of having a little smile to himself because he knows that desperate times calls for desperate measures when someone is pinging off and looking for a random legendary.
What to do?
Benedictus ain't helping you either, boys. The United Kingdom have the chance to now deliver lethal, and that is going to be 3-1, and the United Kingdom going 2-1 up in the Swiss phase, and most importantly, going 2-1 up into a brand new meta in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, and I think the United Kingdom is one of the teams that will have a head start in a new meta with not only strong players like Ball Control, but also creators like Jackie Chan on the team. I think that could be a very good position for them.
An absolutely fantastic position for them in the end. It was a little bit of a slog, and I think they would have been slightly concerned when that Alex Straza came onto the board with the Frozen Clones, but the fact they drew into that second Psychic Scream was pretty handy. Although they would have had the option to potentially use the chance to search for that Psychic Scream anyway. I think that's a pretty well-played game from the UK boys.
Yeah, they played around that second Alex Straza that they knew was there, so they tried to burst it out in one go rather than allow it to heal, otherwise that could have been a disaster. But fairly well played, but straightforward ending. They knew what the plan was. Getting the plan together was the hard bit, but the execution was pretty nice.
And there wasn't even the option as well for Sweden to get any more aggressive with the Dragoncaller Alana, for example, because they weren't given the opportunity to play any big spells where Dragoncaller Alana was creating a load of dragons. So it was a frustrating experience for them, and well, the whole series was pretty frustrating as they go 3-1 down. Can Sweden bounce back from this, though? They go 1-2 in the Swiss. The next game they'll play will be in the new meta. They have those deck builders, you believe?
Yeah, definitely. Orange is one of the very best players around right now. He's having a terrific year. And him and Boston especially, they have very good information sources as well. They have wide networks of players they communicate with. Sweden definitely going into new meta will be a force to be reckoned with. But we keep saying that if there's too many teams on 1 and 2, they've got to play each other. So there might be some of these teams drop out because they're playing against other strong teams.
Let's have a quick recap and have a look then at the games that were played in this series. Jackie Chan and Green Chip were able to find victories and go 2-0 up with their Mage and their Paladin. However, then Kenobi got Sweden back into the series, but it was down to Toast Monster to close it out with his Priest against a Mage, which we knew would be a little bit of a slog, but the Control Priest just having too many options and in the end having too much damage as well against the Mage, because those Arcane Artificers were used very early on just to try and stay out of any range from any early burst damage. As we're going to have a little look at some of the highlights from the series as well, because maybe you've joined us a little bit late and you're saying, hey, what happened? How did the United Kingdom win? Well, this is how.
Dan says, with a smile on his face and a twinkle in his eye. So this was an important play. Obviously, that Cinderstorm looking like it might miss, but didn't. And then this was just emergency measures from Sweden, by which time the UK just set up every secret you could ever want, as you're seeing.
And I've got to say, it was very nice to see the UK players kind of laughing and joking with each other as well. We even saw a little bit of a flag wave, and I say a little bit.
It was an awful flag wave.
It was a pretty terrible flag wave. Maybe if we did chat to Green Sheep, we'd need to see him wave that flag even harder this time, because they were able to find the victory, as he was able to go 2-0 up in the series with his Paladin in a very well-played Paladin game as well. But then the first hurdle for the United Kingdom was with their Death Rattle Hunter. Unfortunately, they couldn't get through the Even Lock. The Even Lock just had too much late game. The Anti-Magic Shell, for example, was a great addition to the hand.
The whole game was very interesting, though. It was just one massive battle for the board. And for a while, like UK had cracked it, but Sweden kept themselves together, managed to, I always say, unlock their hand, because with Warlock you have so much difficulty in dumping your hand, especially on the odd numbered turns. It just gets bigger when you tap. So they managed to keep it all together and keep the board 2 cubes in the bottom 5 cards for the UK.
What I do respect about the end of that game from the United Kingdom in ball control, though, is just putting themselves to 1 health and saying, well, if they have it, they have it, rather than going for that last-ditch attempt and hoping they survive. And then, of course, we just had the final game of the series where the United Kingdom were able to find all of that burst damage thanks to the Mind Blast in hand. And they didn't even find any extra Mind Blasts in that game. They didn't even go down that route. They didn't even need to. So it was a nicely played series for the United Kingdom boys. And of course, I am very happy because I'm a United Kingdom fan and I voted for them. And we're going to have a little interview as well with Toast Monster, I believe, which I'm also going to be particularly happy because Toast is a good friend. Hello, Toast Monster. How are you doing, buddy?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks for asking. Pretty good victory, 3-1. I spoke to you 2 days ago about your preparation coming into this. You felt fairly confident. Was there ever a worry once you saw the matchups, or do you think that the matchups went in your favour?
We were a little bit concerned just because it's always kind of rough with matchups, and then when you get a favourable, it's kind of like there's always the worry that if you lose that favourable, how much of a worse position you're in. When we saw like the first few matchups, it was pretty fairly simple, and then we knew we had a couple of 50-50s. Like the Control Priest Mage game can go either way, so we knew that we had wiggle room with those because there were sort of 2 of those and some favourable matchups for us.
How did you guys prepare this week, given that Jackie and Boar were otherwise engaged at Seat Story? Does that make things difficult for you?
Yeah, this was like our worst preparation week so far. We actually, so in like our Discord group, we're messaging and Boar was like, oh, I'll call in a sec. And then he was like, actually, hold on a minute. Boston's like just down that like a few seats away from me, so maybe we shouldn't. So we just had like text this week, and it was a bit worse than usual. We definitely didn't get the usual sort of ritual and how much pick ban drafting we normally do. We didn't get to do as much of that this week, but we kind of had an idea of what we thought Sweden would play, and so we picked what we thought would be good into that, and it worked out. Pretty
inconsiderate of Boar to just go and win the whole tournament and mess up your prep, right?
Yeah, I know. I mean, he said like, "Oh, I'll probably be free on the Sunday," and then he wasn't.
Terrible. You can't trust ball control anymore. And now we speak of preparation, and I know we had an interview yesterday with you on the community show as well about the new expansion. Your next game is going to be during the Boomsday project. Do you feel like having players like Jackie Chan, for example, is going to be a real help because he does create those kind of different metas and different ideas?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in the first sort of couple of weeks in expansion, how do you prepare for a team that has Jackie Chan in it? Like, what can you do? He's just going to, how do you prepare for literally any combination of 30 cards?
So there we go. Expect the unexpected from the United Kingdom. Thank you so much, Toast, for joining us. Congratulations again on your victory, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon. He's a good old chap, Toast Monster.
A lot more comfortable than he was a couple of weeks ago, especially doing that interview yesterday as well for the community show.
Yep.
I feel like he's really settled into this event. And this has been a good tournament over this year and last year for emerging players like Toast Monster to get that experience whilst having some help from a team as well.
However, he did not toast his bread. He, in fact, grilled it, and I will continue to grill him for that. That is match 2 of the day complete, but we still have plenty more matches coming your way. Next up, we're going to have China versus Poland, and Darok and Falcone will be taking you through that action right after this.